Happy Wednesday to all my folk out there. It's your man Donald King, back to do his thing. I hope all of y'all are doing well. I hope you're doing well out there, right? I'm probably gonna make this a short podcast. I have things that I need to get done, and it's going to be my little boy's 7th birthday coming up soon. We're going to be celebrating it a little bit early because it sort of coincides with business plans. However, man, 7 years have passed since that dude came into the world. It's amazing. I was talking about on Monday how I was on the fence about certain things that I wanted to talk about in the podcast on Monday. And y'all had to forgive me as I sort of dial in here. But and I was mentioning that I hit this sort of bottleneck effect where I was really trying to figure out which subject to choose between. But this subject that I'm going to speak on tonight, it came in a close second, right? And the subject of tonight's podcast is the very second I realized I could never be a Jehovah's Witness. Now, for the record, I don't have a lot of beef with this faith system for the simple fact that the majority of my moral frame of reference comes from, a lot of the values that were instilled in me through this faith system, for which I am incredibly grateful. I wasn't allowed to participate in school sports and stuff like that, and they discouraged, higher learning, such as going to college. And the reason why I'm glad that I wasn't able to participate in sports is because this ultra competitive outlook on life, it wasn't nurtured within me from a very young age, and I didn't get that sort of tribalist mentality where it's team over everything, defend the team, which allowed me to sort of learn how to make sense of things on my own without having to look to team fodder and rhetoric and sort of guidance, or I would say sort of outlooks for guidance. And that's probably the better way to say that. But and even when it came to higher education, I never learned how to put faith in institutional wisdom because, I never developed status beliefs surrounding and or pertaining to information I got from perceived authority figures and sources. So there are a lot of really good things to be said about that faith system. A lot of people don't really gel with them that much, mostly because it's like their opinions and beliefs about the religion come from third party discovery, determinations, and perspectives. And they form these hardline beliefs about something they never bothered to investigate on their own. And that's something that I highly discourage. If you must make agreements with yourself about how something is in reality, at least be brave enough to investigate it on its terms. So for people who get it in their mind that, Jehovah's Witnesses are crazy or they're cults or whatever, if you haven't actually done the work to investigate them, just face to face, and not with bias guiding you, but just trying to understand them on their terms, then having an opinion about them is technically ignorant. Ignorant meaning to ignore. You ignore the truth and reality of how something is in order to preserve your inner story and or the system of agreements you form with yourself based on a thing you perceive. It makes you ignorant. That being said, I'm going to talk about the day I realized I could never be a Jehovah's Witness, right? And this isn't a pronouncement of guilt against the entire faith system, though I saw this proclivity I'm speaking to demonstrated several times throughout the course of, my time and exposure to the belief system, right? There was this sister I knew who I was best friends with her son, and we grew up together. I grew up calling this woman my aunt. I loved her. She was like family to me, right? And, in the Jehovah's Witness faith system, you're not allowed to have sex with people. You're not allowed to date unless you're planning to marry. You can't have sex until you're married, and you're not allowed to date until you're planning to marry, right? And it significantly limits the amount of options that are available to you, because more than likely you're going to pick your fish from the pond the pond you swim in. And it's a big world. It's a big world out there. It's sort of basing your ideal of who's a good fit for you on what's most readily available to you. It's an almost certain recipe for failure, right? And a lot of people, they stay together through years of misery by trying to compensate for incompatibility with deep social acting, and that's bad into itself. Like, you can't pray every problem away. You can't act every problem away. Sometimes you got to get in there and you got to get your hands dirty and start unpacking issues that are happening, behind the individual's apperceptions respectively, right? So, but anyway, I don't want to say her name, but the woman who I call my aunt, she ended up meeting this fellow. Now, she's a black woman, and this guy, he's a white man, right? And, she had some health issues. I don't know if she was diabetic, but what I do know is that for the duration of her life, she had suffered from a pretty severe case of scoliosis. And she met this guy, and, they hit it off, not necessarily because they were compatible, but because they were available. And when you sort of hard up for affection and you just want to connect with somebody and you want to see where that goes on a physical level, then in that faith system, you kind of have to, you got to go all the way in. You got to go all the way in. And they end up getting married, right? Now, they have their honeymoon phase, obviously, where they're around each other and they're probably going at it like wild alley cats, as you would expect to, seeing as you have all this pent-up sexual frustration from not being able to exercise your sort of biological imperative there to procreate, and or at the very least use the equipment that you're meant to procreate with, right? But after the honeymoon phase starts wearing down, this cowardly son of a bitch, this weak asshole of a man, he starts hitting on her. He starts putting hands on her, like you would expect a cowardly son of a bitch to do. And I'm maybe 15, 16 at the time. And this dude is hitting on my aunt. And the way that the Jehovah's Witness faith system deals with marital issues is you're supposed to go to the elders with your issues. You're supposed to go to the elders with your marital problems and things of this nature. And they treat it like it's something that can simply be prayed and acted away. So this man is putting hands on this woman who has physical health issues. And they go to the elders. And ultimately it turns out that she wants to divorce this man. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. I fucking hate cowardice with a passion. She wants to divorce this man, and they start inching towards divorce and separation. And the elder's response to her trying to get away from an abuser who could have very well killed her was to disfellowship and or excommunicate her until she went through this process of demonstrating value to the group again that made her worthy of being brought back into the fold. So a body of men punished a black woman for getting away from an abusive man because she didn't pray hard enough, because she didn't act hard enough. And it was one day in the book study. Here's the thing. She still kept coming to the meetings. She still kept coming to the meetings, trying to prove her value to the group when there was nothing to prove. And it was one day in a book study where I saw her sitting in the back by herself. And it was in that moment I realized that faith system wasn't for me. And in my first act of defiance, which would lay the frame for the man I would ultimately become in life, I went and sat beside my aunt because no one else was going to sit beside her. One of my other brothers came and sat with us, and her son came and sat with her too. I had to choose between what was right and what was in theme with the faith system. In that moment, I had to choose between my own sense of honesty and allegiance to what was proper and sticking by the crowd. And I chose honesty. I chose what was proper. They turned their back on a physically disabled person getting abused by a fucking coward. And everyone else didn't. When you're disfellowshipped in that faith system, people aren't allowed to speak to you. They're not allowed to communicate with you. They're not allowed to. The only people who are allowed to talk to you are the elders. And I realized in that moment, I could never be part of that. But it laid the frame for me to realize how I can never be an ideologue in general. Because the same thing the Jehovah's Witnesses do to people who choose reality over defending and preserving doctrine is the same thing that every cowardly social group does. If you knew the people who I went to school with, these cowardly ideologues, most of which who identify as Christian, who are in so much shit right now. They try to excommunicate those who speak against the dominant narrative. It's fundamentally no different. You choose the group over reality. They chose the group over reality. And even worse, people saw what was wrong. They saw something they knew was wrong, and in a very cowardly way chose saving their own hides over stepping up and doing what was right. See, if you spoke against the elder's pronouncement of her getting disfellowship for getting away from an abusive asshole, then you put yourself on the chopping block too. And people were so scared of defying the authority of those in positions of power within the faith system that they chose abiding a corrupt ruling over stepping into it and saying this isn't right. And it happens up and down throughout the stratification system of the religion. People choose defending the identity and defending the reputation of the faith system over being honest, over being just and fair and true. That happens in society every day. You know the reason why? My brother Ruben, you already know what it is. Love you, dog. And that's you grew up in it. You know what it is. I grew up with this man since we were babies. I've known him. He grew up in the faith system with me. They chose defending doctrine over recognizing and syncing up with reality. What did Jesus say? Jesus said, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. How the fuck can you know truth if you're never honest about anything? Does honesty begin and end with your allegiance to a group of people? Or is it something that's personal? Is it something that carries over into your alone time and in your life? Is it a way of living, or is it deep social acting? It crushed my soul to see them turn their back on a person who needed help, who didn't even need help, who was trying to help herself out of a terrible situation, just so they could save face and say, hey, we did the good thing. We did what is in theme with religious doctrine. And other people just went along with it. They knew it was wrong and they went along with it. And I drew the line there. No, I couldn't articulate it in the way that I speak on it now. But I drew the line there. Never this. Again, I'm grateful for a lot of life lessons that I took away from that faith system. I'm grateful for the moral frame. I'm grateful for the studiousness. And I even shot a podcast with, my brothers who are former Jehovah's Witnesses. And I specifically requested that they speak on all the things that they took away in terms of benefit from the faith system. However, I'm being honest with you right now. Honesty doesn't end or begin with what's convenient to speak about. I walked away from that belief system because I saw cowardice. I saw people turn away from reality and barricade themselves within doctrines and look to the group to give them answers that their conscience should have steered them toward in reality. If someone is being abused, you step up like a fucking G. You step into it and stand in between. No, this will not happen. This will not happen. Not while I'm here. And then just the fear of reprisal from people not being okay with you speaking out against the authority of those in power? Are you insane? You give people these positions of authority. You tell them that they're special, that they're chosen, and that God gives them the right to be judges of men. It goes to their head, and they block out reality in order to preserve doctrine, but even worse, in order to preserve the position of authority and power that's been granted to them, and it makes them corrupt. It makes them corrupt. My aunt, a woman who I've known my entire life, who I cannot tell the difference between her and blood, was being abused by a fucking coward, and she got punished too for not acting hard enough and not praying hard enough and not doing whatever they thought would keep an abuser's hands off of her. Are you being submissive? Are you praying to God? Are you acting hard enough? If he tells you to do something, then as a wife, you're supposed to listen. It's no different than some cowardly cop comes around and shoots a black person or a brown person or even a poor white person. And the first thing that the people in positions of authority ask is, well, did you comply with demands? Did you follow instructions? Cowardice. It is hated by reality. Hey, no, it's never, some person who has deep personality issues and who suffers from trauma, the fear of disempowerment, has been unleashed on a population. You need to check that person. No. Victim blaming. And that's what it was. That's what made me realize I could never be a Jehovah's Witness. Victim blaming. It pissed me off so bad. So yeah, I sat beside her. Shortly thereafter, it's like I ended up hooking up with my first, I can't call it girlfriend, but I mean, it's like, that fractured my perception of the faith system. Because here's the thing, I never wanted to be a Jehovah's Witness growing up. I didn't like the belief system, but I always assumed that I was just going to be. My ideas of life began and ended with Dayton, Ohio, and this was the group of people I grew up around who I knew. I always thought that they were going to be fixtures in my life, so I had no concept of what life was supposed to be without them. None. I figured I'd go through the motions and just ultimately get baptized and find me a wife and get a factory job and just go door to door. And even though I didn't believe back then, I thought that, with enough time and exposure, ultimately I would come to. But that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was the day I said never. It was the day I said never. And again, see, I'm not bashing Jehovah's Witnesses in this podcast, because here's the deal. Every faith system is like that. Here's an example. Be a Christian, go to a church and then start studying with Jehovah's Witnesses and go to that church and see what people do. First, they're going to try and convince you to stay. Then they're going to start shunning you. The same way that Jehovah's Witnesses do. That tribalist mentality that we're the good guys and they're the bad guys bullshit. It's got to go. Right now, the world needs brave people. People who are brave enough to step into the fucking flame and be like, yo, hey, what's proper is proper. What's wrong is wrong. It has absolutely nothing to do with beliefs and or the agreements we make with ourselves and among each other. We don't have a moral. We have an ethical compass inside of us that says, hey, taken from people who are not strong enough to fight back is wrong. Punishing and taking anger and frustrations out on the powerless is fucking wrong. Each and every one of us have that compass within us to know that exploitation and using others to take our anger and frustrations out on is wrong. We know that judging and punishing people is wrong. And it takes brave people to step up and be like, no, not today. Hey, everybody in the world who's weaker than you isn't going to be your physical and emotional punching bag. You need to somebody hit me. You're not going to go after that person who's too weak to defend themselves. But these men, in these menial positions of power and authority, made a decision to take away the most important thing in a woman's life because she didn't want to keep acting and letting some coward beat on her. And I said, never. It is why I will never support a fascist regime. Is why I'll never support cowards in positions of authority who get to unilaterally aggress against the powerless. I don't care if I stand to benefit from it in any way, shape, or form. I don't care if I get recognition from the group for siding with cowards in positions of authority. I will never do it. You have to be corrupt through and through to choose defending authority and defending your perception of your own authority over recognizing and syncing up with reality, which makes you an enemy to reality. It makes you an enemy to God. It gets my blood boiling thinking about it right now. And the worst part about it is they were indoctrinated to believe that what they were doing was correct. They were indoctrinated to believe that punishing a victim was correct. These are beliefs that they accepted. A belief, again, is an agreement you make with yourself about how something is in reality. It didn't have shit to do with reasoning. It didn't have shit to do with ethicalness. It didn't have anything to do with making a decision based on what would produce the best outcome. It was simply them flexing their little power, their little might and authority. There are all sorts of rumors about things that go on behind closed doors in that faith system, and how much gets covered up by individuals claiming themselves to be elders or higher. The degree to which I'm able to verify such claims is limited. I haven't been near that faith system in nearly 30 years. Does it track with what I was able to witness during the time I had exposure to it in real time? Absolutely. Protecting authority, preserving reputation, deep social acting, trying to fix everything with beliefs and with prayer and with tools that have absolutely and which make absolutely no impact on reality. Sending people out here defenseless and telling them all they need to do is believe. It's like sending lambs to slaughter. A lot of people go looking for something to give them structure, an organization, and some sense of purpose and direction in life. And they find their way to various faith systems, and then the faith systems set them up to relinquish their capacities for reasoning and their faculty for honesty and intuition. And very much like in the parable Jesus used about the slaves with the talents, these faith systems get people to bury their talents. They get people to bury their reasoning abilities and bury their honesty and bury their intuition to the tune of pissing reality off. Who in their right mind could look at someone who has severe health issues, get beat on, and tell them, hey, you just need to try harder to be a better wife? Who? Certainly no one I want to interact with. It's the same with people who witness black people being hunted and murdered by cowards in positions of authority or by groups that outnumber them 5-1. Telling them, hey, if you're just better citizens and maybe try harder to not be so dark, then you wouldn't run into so many problems. You wouldn't run into any issues. Just comply with authority. Those attitudes, those outlooks, they need to be expunged from reality. They need to be expunged from existence immediately and with extreme prejudice. That cowardice is what corruption thrives by way of and through. You deserve the fate that's coming to you. For those of you who hold that outlook, you deserve everything that's coming to you. And I would say, and twice as much, but nah. I honestly, in my view, based on what I'm seeing through the Avatar perspective, I wouldn't even wish it on you. As corrupt as you are, I wouldn't wish it on you because it's that fucking bad. But you will have earned this. You will have earned it. And every second that passes, it only gets worse, exponentially worse. But yeah, man, that's when I realized, never. I don't roll with cowardice at all. Period. Victim blaming is cowardly as fuck. Reality hates cowardice. I'm hosting a function of reality, so I know how bad reality hates cowardice with a passion. Now, I wouldn't even say hate. Hate, as I understand it, means to wish out of existence, to never want to see again or experience again. So a lot of things that I hate, that means it's like I want you to not exist. I don't want to think about you. I don't want anything. The hatred, that's what hatred is to me. Reality abhors cowardice. And again, all of this shit, all these impacts, they get charged back to the individual. This is going to get bad, man. It's going to get real bad. But again, that's when I realized, like, nah, never. Victim blaming, punishing women, hierarchical systems and or stratification systems which put women at the bottom and make them subservient and slaves to men. Are you fucking serious? You know, I was raised again in this belief system, and I had no idea of how much of a chauvinist it made me. Back in the day, I legit thought women were supposed to exist as my helper, as my mate. They were there to supplement my life, keep my balls drained, my belly fed, while I went out and traded my life away for resources for us to survive on. That was my thought of what being a good man was, as opposed to a good woman. Then, oddly enough, my ex-wife, she was military. We had a little boy with special needs. And I got to stay home and be the primary caretaker to our son with special needs. And I got to basically be what I thought a wife was supposed to be. I got to live as what I expected a woman to be for me. A good woman, right? And lo and behold, I lived as a slave. And I hated it. But it was a great way for me to see how deep my biases ran, because this is even after I was quote unquote enlightened. I got to see how deep my corrupt and my toxic outlook was actually ingrained within me. It's wild, right? Imagine getting to become something that you were primed to look down on and see as being inherently inferior. It's like a white person one day waking up with black skin and, thinking that they were an advocate before. Oh, yeah, I love black people. I listen to hip hop. I rocked dreads down in Jamaica when I went on thing. And it's like BLM. And all of a sudden waking up in black skin and realizing, oh, shit, this is way deeper than the sort of cursory allegiances that I thought I had on the front end. Damn, am I really this racist? Did I really expect someone to live like this? Did I honestly think that this was okay? Just because it's like, I had some sort of cursory connection to them and I said supportive things every now and again. Is this legit how I thought they were supposed to live? Wow. You come face to face with it and you realize you're full of shit yourself. But that's part of the enlightenment process, man. Once you reach a point of awareness where you're synced up with reality, which is what enlightenment is supposed to be, then you have to go back and do double work, because you have to dig out all of that deep conditioning and social priming. And you really spend just years of your life dealing with the fact that you were really a shitty motherfucker, man. Like, damn, was I really this bad? Am I really this corrupt? Wow. And that's how it went, man. But yeah, it's like that was the beginning of the end for me with respect to the Jehovah's Witness faith system. Watching them do somebody dirty for two reasons. One, because of the power that was imbued, the authority that was imbued to them by the faith system. And three reasons, I guess. Two, because she was a woman. Poor black woman in Dayton, Ohio. And three, because defending doctrine and keeping the sort of reputation of the religion and its correctness intact took precedence over them recognizing and syncing up with the reality of the situation. I said never. Again, I can put it into words that I wasn't able to back then, now. But it's wild. It's wild. Shit, I got anybody else out in the audience with me tonight? Got anybody out there? I got Brother Rube chimed in, but yeah, man. When defending your beliefs and your belief system, your faith system takes precedence over you recognizing and syncing up with reality, you are corrupt. Period. It's not subjective. If defending your belief system takes precedence over you being honest and reasonable, your mind and your heart are corrupt. Hey, brother Mehdi Rashik, that's a cool name. Mehdi Rashik, hopefully I said that right. But yeah, and in that moment, I had to choose. Am I going to do what felt honest and correct? Or am I going to run with the crowd? And it took a couple of decades for me. I won't say decades. Let's say it took a couple more years for me to stop running with crowds and stop chasing crowds and stop trying to get acceptance from crowds because the crowd is always wrong. It took me some years to get away from wanting that inclusion and desperately seeking that validation and instead choosing to align with what feels intuitively correct. Again, intuition being a sensory faculty that connects you to the system of reality itself. Intuition being the sensory faculty that expands your sphere of awareness from beyond your, or expands your sphere of awareness beyond your mortal coil. It took me years to learn how to lean into that a little bit more. But what I instantly knew in that moment is that I could not abide. I could not tolerate. I could not stand beside people who would knowingly choose turning their back on what was right in order to preserve a belief system. In order to preserve the goodness, the perceived goodness of their group, the reputation of their group. That goes to everybody in society. If you would rather defend the honor and the reputation of your group over recognizing and syncing up with reality and taking note of the impact that you and your group, plural, are making on others in the world around you, I can't fuck with you. I can't respect you because it means you're a coward. What is a coward? Coward is a person who's afraid to face and deal with reality. A passive coward is one who retreats from reality and or who freezes in the face of insecurity and uncertainty. So instead of facing and dealing with and adapting to reality, they barricade and cocoon themselves within mythologies and stories and from within groups and echo chambers. An aggressive coward is one who experiences cognitive dissonance when reality or agents performing within reality don't match their inner story, so they become aggressive and they try to force things to fit with, conform to, and match their identity and or the story they tell themselves about the world around them and their place and value within it. And the only difference between a passive coward and an aggressive coward is the illusion of power. Power turns a coward aggressive. It makes them an aggressive parasite. The perception of power does. And I hate cowardice with a passion. I hate cowardice with a passion. Through cowardice, all corruption enters the world. Yeah, man. And I never got over that. I watched it too many times. Seen these young kids go out here, and Jehovah's Witnesses, how they dealt with kids and sexuality and human sexuality. Hey, pray it away, act it away, pretend like it's not there. Pray to God whenever you feel horny or all these other things. You're trying to pray away your biology. Pretend like it's not there. Read stories, read articles that are supposed to give you a dopamine fix that doesn't quite satiate the oxytocin and vasopressin release that your ego parasite is craving. And after a while, you start psychologically damaging yourself. And these young kids go out here and they fuck around and they end up pregnant, and all of a sudden everybody turns on them. Oh, look at you. And I did this too. Oh, you dirty whore. You're just so unclean. Satisfying a biological imperative. Yeah. You didn't try hard enough. You didn't pretend and act hard enough. You didn't do enough to pray away your biology. Cowardly. Stand in judgment and contempt of people. People who the adultery, the fornication, all these things, people listening to their bodies and their bodies telling them in reality, hey, something is going on here. It's a chemical reaction, buddy. It's a chemical reaction happening right now. You need to hear this. You need to honor this. And then, no, I'm going to pretend it's not there. Then they fuck around, go and get their dick wet or their pussy beat out. Then all of a sudden they're shunned because they didn't act hard enough. Stick with our stories of God over recognizing the system that is your body that was created by it. So yeah, and that's the reason why I can never be part of any organized faith system, because if in order for me to be part of your faith system, I have to block out reality and I have to be dishonest with myself and pretend like deep social acting solves problems that happen in reality, and that group consensus solves problems that happen in reality, and that simply delving into mythologies is going to fix problems that are happening in reality. If I have to pretend in order to keep you in my life, I don't want you in my life. Period. If I have to block reality out in order to keep my relationship with you, fuck my relationship with you. Period. If I have to trust the stories you give me about reality, about God, over observing reality on my own and allowing it to communicate to me through intuition, if I have to choose going and investing my talents in reality or burying them like that slave in Jesus's parable, if I have to choose between being the slave that buries his talents and being the one that goes out and uses theirs and multiplies it, again, when you use intelligence, when you use reasoning, when you use honesty, you multiply these things. If I have to choose between being the slave that got thrown out into the cold for being a coward and being the one that went and used what he was given in order to multiply it and bring it back to the master, bring it back to reality, I'm going to choose reality, and I'm going to choose multiplying my talents and my gifts every fucking time. Fuck your deep social acting. Fuck your cliques. Fuck your groups. Fuck your acceptance. Fuck your consensus. All of that shit. It goes in the trash. I will never choose you over reality. Ever. Oh, you said a bad word. Shut the fuck up. Reality doesn't speak English. Humans do. We come up with fucking terminology regarding what is good and bad words. There's a system of agreements we made with ourselves. And the system of agreements we made with ourselves, it is not recognized with or validated within or honored by reality. Oh, you did a thing that's socially frowned upon. Fuck that. Fuck what's socially frowned upon. As long as you're not negatively impacting on reality or killing things or causing imbalances and pain and suffering to others, nobody gives a fuck. Reality doesn't give a fuck. Your systems of agreements, human systems of agreements, have no bearing on reality. Reality does not revolve around human agreements. It doesn't revolve around human consensus. It does not care about what you think is right or wrong. And that, again, goes back to the point of why I can never be part of that faith system or any faith system. They're of the impression that their consensus creates reality, and that reality recognizes and conforms to what they think is right and wrong. Shave your face. God made it, reality made it so that you can grow a beard. What the fuck are you shaving? Who you listening to, men or reality? Who you listening to, men or God? Oh, God frowns upon fornication and adultery. There isn't a single human living right now that can trace their entire lineage back to social contracts that are marriages. You go back through your genealogy far enough, somebody fucked somebody out of wedlock. It happened. Make peace with it. And if you're here as a result of that, then to suggest that God takes issue with that on some level is to suggest that you should not exist and that you are an abomination. Period. It's just reasoning. It's just reasoning and honesty. God doesn't care about social contracts. Those are agreements humans make with themselves. Period. Guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're at 55 minutes. Y'all already know what it is, man. So I shoot these podcasts on Mondays and Wednesdays on Facebook Live. I shoot these, and I need you guys to understand something. I have other things I could do with my time. I'm not shooting these for the sake of winning anyone's favor or approval. I'm giving you information that is absolutely critical to what you're about to pass into in the next life cycle. I'm not making any of this stuff up. This isn't Donald King's feelings and beliefs. Donald King has been imbued with a perspective that allows him to see reality in perfect pitch. And surprise, surprise, life doesn't end with the expiration of the human mortal coil. It's cyclical. And you need to get your shit right on this side, because all the imbalances and impacts you've made that have weighed negatively onto reality as a system are going to be charged back to you moving into the next life cycle. And many of you are not going to even make it into the next life cycle. You're going to be purged from existence in the most excruciating way imaginable. All of the potential you robbed from reality will get back charged to you, and it doesn't matter how long it takes in order for reality to get square, to get even. If it takes millennia, multiple millennia, just exponential millennia, you're going to have to pay it back. Nothing is free. I'm doing all of this to try and help you to the best of my ability. I'm giving you information you need in order to start reversing negative impacts you've made on the system of reality. You may think that this is optional. It's not optional. Understanding what I'm explaining to you, even ignoring what I'm explaining to you, if you try to understand and you make adjustments, that works towards restoring balance in reality, towards helping you work your way out of your deficit, your debts to reality. Ignoring me, it exponentially multiplies all of what you're going to have to pay back to the system of reality. And again, none of this shit is free. So the reason why I mention that is because it's like, I'm not doing this for my health. I'm doing this because it is essential to your growth and advancement moving forward. Period. This is restorative for you. It takes a toll on me, but I'm not doing this for your acceptance or your recognition or your praise. I'm doing this because I've literally been tasked to. And this is reality giving you your shot to get it right. Anywho, yes, on Facebook Live, Mondays and Wednesdays, you can check me out. Also, you can see this. You can check me out on Instagram. Avatar Cycle XIII. It's Avatar Cycle 13. I fly all of these podcasts over to the YouTube channel so you can go back and you can watch them on your terms. Actually, this will be the 6th one that I'm going to upload tonight. I've been very busy with my dessert dealer company trying to build that up and then doing extra work to try and get the tools to build that up. So it's my life. I wear many hats. But hopefully it all even out before too long. But your boy is tired. And I do this work, again, for your benefit, not necessarily for mine. Also, I post content to Medium. And if you get any sort of benefit out of what I'm doing and you want to, bless your boy with a little bit of love, toss a few coins in the collection plate, as it were, you can always join the Patreon family. I'm Avatar Cycle XIII. This Avatar Cycle 13. And then also, if you ever want to, you can hit me up on Cash App. My handle is Donnie Kang. Proceeds go to building this up to a larger platform, getting better equipment, getting into a space that is a little bit more temperature controlled, and getting a space that's large enough to actually host real interviews with, because again, I want to do everything in my power to make sure that I left no stone unturned in my efforts to convey these principles to y'all. I'm really doing my best to just make it as clean, easy, and efficient as possible. So it is what it is. Anywho, I'm going to close with the final thoughts. And, circle back to that. It's not just about Jehovah's Witnesses. It's about any belief system. It's about any group, ideology, belief system, or whatever. If sticking with the group is more important to you, and honoring the codes of the group is more important to you than being honest with yourself and recognizing and syncing up with reality, then I don't fuck with you. You're cowardly. If preserving the authority and the reputation of your belief system is more important to you, and your group is more important to you than being honest with yourself and being reasonable and being compassionate and being empathetic, I don't want anything to do with you. Period. Because I hate cowardice. And if that's your way of being, then you're a coward. It's not up for negotiation. It's not. It's not subjective. If you're a coward, you're corrupt. They're one and the same. If you're a coward, you host the entity, corruption, and or what humans refer to as devil. And I'm rolling with God, so that automatically puts us at odds with each other now, doesn't it? Your cowardice isn't welcome here. Just like my truth isn't welcome in your cowardice. Beautiful part about truth is this. Ultimately, time tells everything. So whether you believe me, or conversely, whether or not you choose to consider the things I'm saying and use your own reasoning and your own honesty to recognize and realize that I am synced up with reality, how it plays out ultimately falls to you. Truth prevails in the end, and where you fall, when reality makes that cut, it is 1,000% on you. You saw something that made you feel insecure and uncertain? You either cower before it and retreat and aggress against it, or you chest up, chin out, step into it, see what's up, like a fucking G. But there's no in between. You choose the path of cowardice. You choose the path of truth, bravery, and honesty. It's your man, Donald King. I'm out.